I got a decent amount of stuff to talk about on the front end, so.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Restoring Human podcast. I'm Jared Bakken.
I'm Dr. Alex Arguello.
And we are terribly, terribly sorry. If you subscribe on iTunes or YouTube, you'll notice a gap between episode 9 and episode 11. And for that, we apologize.
Especially because episode 10 was super sweet.
Oh my gosh. So some of you caught it on Facebook Live last week, but we had our good friend Lynn Waterman, cat's out of the bag. We were keeping that a little bit of a secret, but we had her on to talk about her experience over the past 6 months or so and a very dramatic life change. Huge amount of weight loss and a lot of lifestyle changes. And unfortunately, we lost the official recording. Don't know how. And I was very upset about it for a good amount of time after we recorded it. But it's all over. Can't do anything about it. Can't dwell on it. Good news is we're back this week. Also good news is I believe we're going to try to re-record that next week.
The remix.
Yeah, so it won't be quite as, I don't want to call it not authentic, but, and actually, who knows, it could end up better because now we have a little more context that I don't think we necessarily had at first, so maybe we'll get some better better things out of it, but it was really good. If you want to suffer through the bad audio of the Facebook Live feed, go ahead and watch that, but if not, don't worry. That her story will be shared.
Yes. Yes, it will.
So, now that I've gotten that out of the way, episode 11 today. Alex, where are we headed?
Are you going to do the brought to you by?
Oh, yeah.
Because I got something to say about that.
Okay. Once again, we are brought to you by Great River Family Chiropractic. Go to greatriverfamilychiropractic.com/restoringhuman to receive a free chiropractic consultation. That's where we are currently residing.
Yeah, and I want to say something about that really quick. Just basically kind of clarify who that visit is for and why it's important. If you have been following along with us, we hit on this in episode 5 where we went through kind of the 3 different parts of healthcare that we all need. One of those types of healthcare was adaptive healthcare. What that means basically is a big part of taking care of our health is making sure that our bodies have this ability to adapt to our environment. And that ability has to be strong to be able to adapt to our environment. If it's not, then we're not going to be healthy. The nervous system is what determines your body's ability to do that. So we want a healthy nervous system. And what determines whether or not our nervous system is healthy is whether or not it has tension on it. So as a chiropractor, my main focus is to figure out if there's tension and where that tension is at on the nervous system. So who that visit is for is anybody that's never really had their spine and nervous system evaluated for that tension. Now that could be a newborn baby, that could be a child, that could be a teenager, that could be an adult. We all need our spines checked for that specific purpose, stress on your nervous system. Because there's no way you can be ultimately healthy and reach your God-given potential if there is that stress and that tension. So who that visit is not for is somebody who doesn't understand that, or maybe not understand it, but kind of rejects it and just wants their neck cracked because they have neck pain. That's not who I prefer to take care of. And I'm not actually even very good at that sort of thing. So I was reminded about just kind of the need for education on chiropractic by a phone call I received yesterday. So my assistant, Rebecca, is in Puerto Rico visiting family, so I don't usually answer the phones, but I am now answering the phones.
Yeah.
And I got a call, and a lady on the other line said, "Hello, I'm calling because I'm shopping around for a new chiropractor." So I'm like, "Awesome, I can help you with that. What do you need to know?" And she's like, "Well, can you just kind of explain to me what the initial process is to becoming a new patient?" And I went through. I was like, "Yeah, we'll get a history of you. I'll do a consultation, kind of see what's going on, and then I'll do an examination of your nervous system so that we can figure out what we would need to do to help you. And that might include x-rays, it might not. And she's like, okay, well, that's one of the main reasons I was asking, because I don't really want x-rays because I kind of know what I need based off of where it hurts and what I've had done from other chiropractors. So, of course, I'm like,
Red
man,
flag.
if I would have known before I went to school for 8 years and invested lots and lots of money to become a doctor that all I needed to do was just ask somebody where it hurts and say, where else does your chiropractor adjusted you at?
Poke me here.
That I would have been able to help people, a lot sooner and a lot cheaper, I guess. So, yeah, that's who it's not for. Again, we want to, the reason that somebody would be under chiropractic care and the reason that I want to provide them chiropractic care is just a part of this whole lifestyle that we're trying to teach people, this kind of restoring human lifestyle, this not this just solely reacting to our health, but promoting health and the body functioning the way it's supposed to. So I just wanted to say
Gotcha,
something
yeah.
about that.
Hopefully she does not listen to the show because she might get a little offended by that. But
Well, I mean,
I suppose it's her question.
I didn't say it to her. I
Yeah.
thought it in my head. That's not how I
Well, you
responded.
said it now. Actually, one more thing on the good old human topic. Totally off subject. Do you know what vocal fry is? Were you in on this conversation?
I don't know what conversation you're speaking about specifically, but I've heard things about your voice that's
What the
not good.
heck? Yeah. Like, now I'm all aware of, like, how I'm talking. Anyway, somebody told me that, like, I talk in this certain way, and so it's, we've got, what is it, 4 different, like, vocal ranges, and apparently I use one that's not supposed to be used to talk in. I don't know, but
Is
So-
it supposed to be used at all then?
no, so it's like the lowest register. Who's watching? Oh, okay. I was wondering if it was one of the people that could say something about this. It's like, so it's the lowest register, and yeah, apparently it's not meant for regular talking, but whatever. I don't know. I've been doing a lot of research on it. I just didn't know if you knew much about it.
Nope. I
Yeah,
do not.
whatever.
Sorry.
So now that I'm extremely self-conscious about my voice, let's keep talking. All right. Where are we headed today for real?
Well, we want to kind of continue the direction we've been going for the last few weeks and focus on nutrition, but get more specific on the dangers of this kind of the standard American diet, or just the diet that most people, not only in America now, but most people live throughout the world, which is far away from the diet that people used to have. So, of course, we've hit on some, just really numerous problems with this diet. We've hit on how there's too many carbohydrates in that particular diet. We hit on how we've kind of gotten away from the sources, the natural sources of whether it's meat or dairy or even the way we grow vegetables and other produce. We've talked just that we're eating too much, we're eating too often, all those different things. But probably the 2 biggest things, and we hit on it in an earlier episode, was just this sugar and vegetable oil thing. That is probably the 2 biggest problems with this diet, and probably the 2 biggest ways that we've gotten so far away from this human diet that we're trying to communicate to people. So, want to get into some specifics on that, and I don't know, we might not even get to both of them based off of where we go. But again, all that means is we just have something else to talk about at a later show. But we're going to start with sugar. That's where we want to go. So before, and you might want to speak to this a little bit, but I'll just speak to it real fast. Before we get into talking about what sugar or what vegetable oils do to our bodies, because you're going to probably hear us talk about it really in a tone that says they're evil and they're the devil, and we shouldn't be putting them in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of full disclosure, confession a little bit.
Uh-oh.
We're not talking about these things in a way that we would be judging people or kind of talking down on them like
Okay.
they do this and we don't, so they're
Sure.
somehow worse than us. I wish that I could say for myself and for my family that we treat these things like the plague and they never go inside of our body. But if I said that, that would be a lie.
Sure.
So the two things we're going to be hitting on is vegetable oils or industrialized seed oils, vegetable oils, and sugar. What is my favorite treat in the world?
Am I supposed? Can I answer this?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Alex loves donuts. Loves donuts.
Yes. So when you think about a donut, it's probably one of the absolute worst things you can put in your body. Why? Because, again, just getting back to the whole problem with processed food, it's a processed grain, so it takes a whole grain and makes it into a processed grain, so it's white bread.
Mm-hmm.
And then they take that white bread and they fry it into this vegetable oils that we're going to be talking about, and then they just put sugar all over top of it.
And oftentimes food colorings.
And then there's colorings, there's chemicals, there's additives, preservatives, depending on which donuts you're eating. So, yeah, not something we should be putting in our body, obviously. But we do. We put these things in our body on occasion. So,
side note about that, Alex once told me that the joy that he receives from eating a donut completely offsets any any negative effects of its nutritional value.
Yeah, right. It's stress relieving.
At least to an extent for 30 seconds.
Yeah. So our hope would be that as we talk about this stuff today is that it would be motivating and hopefully encouraging to stay away from this stuff or minimize it as much as possible. But we also want to try to communicate taking the philosophy that we're teaching and I guess making application with this sort of thing. So when you learn all the problems with sugar, when you learn all the problems with vegetable oil, hopefully, again, that would motivate you to try to minimize it. But also, just by knowing those things, now when you do put something like that in your body and you experience the negative effects, the philosophy would say that the reason that I'm having these health problems, the reason that I just got sick or whatever it is not because of a lack of medication that I need to put in my body to fix those symptoms. It's, man, I made a bad choice for my health. So now I just need to start making good choices, and eventually my body will balance out, get back to the way it's supposed to function. Not, again, just covering up that symptom so that you can continue to eat more donuts, right? So that's kind of what we're hoping to communicate. Because, I've experienced this in the past, because I used to be worse. But even now, like when I talk about healthy stuff, people are like, well, you talk about all this healthy stuff, but then I see you, eating pizza or whatever. At a gathering, like a birthday party or something like that. I'm like, well, the difference is, yes, if I go to some sort of celebration, I'll eat something like that, but I know most likely what's going to happen to me. So now I can kind of overcompensate on the other end and do some things to allow my body to heal from that and get back to functioning normally. But I also have, I guess, made that an opportunity for me to do that because I haven't done that leading up to that particular point. So now it's not going to have as much devastating effect on my body as somebody else who that celebration is just a continuation of what they do typically every single day. And they're also not going to probably do something to respond to that, or they probably will, but it might not be the best way to respond to that. So
yeah, it's especially if it's like, you go out to dinner and you go to the like super fancy burger joint and like you go and you order a salad and like I don't know, you like that's not what it's not what you're there for. And so,
well, again, if that is what you enjoy eating,
well, yeah, that's fine.
Definitely do that. But if you're doing it because, again,
it's when it's like, so it's kind of like what is in the acute. If you're on some type of 30-day diet or something, and like this healthy eating is something that's this acute time in your overall life you're participating in, then okay, yeah, you go out to dinner and you try to make the absolute best choice possible. But when on the flip side, the pizza, the burgers, the desserts, whatever, when that is this acute thing amidst this otherwise very healthy, very nourishing diet, then it's yeah, it's not a big deal.
Right. Right.
I mean, it is a big deal. Your body has to fight against it, but you're more. It's almost like building a hedge against that for this one instance. So,
Yep.
like, hearing you talk about that makes me think of. I think around like holidays and things like that, where you go to lots of parties and you have like multiple days of a dessert after this meal and that kind of thing. Like that's when I personally notice things the most, is when it's kind of jam packed into like 1 week of multiple times being at different events and things and
Right.
compromising, continually over the course of a few days, as opposed to like, go to one party, whatever, like enjoy what's going on, and it's usually one instance like that's not a huge deal.
Right. And they didn't get to see it, but like we said with Lynn, because one of the questions you asked her was, have you indulged in anything after doing this? And she said, yeah. And we were at a party, and I had a cupcake because there was cupcakes there, and we wanted to celebrate the graduation of a friend's daughter. And I said, well, I can probably guarantee that you enjoyed that cupcake way more than the other people enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because, again, she's not always having it. So that's kind of how, again, the regular, the best way a human is supposed to eat is they're supposed to eat in this way, but then, for them it might have been berries or honey.
Sure.
They would come across it very, rare occasion, and they would just super enjoy it,
Yeah.
But that's what we're eating all the time. So our ability to even enjoy it goes away.
Sure.
Yep. All right. So let's start with sugar. A substance that is ubiquitous. It's in everything, right? Pretty much all processed foods, things in a box, in a bag, in a can, all are full of sugar, and there's lots and lots of different forms that sugar comes in. I think before we get into research on what we've been able to find that sugar does to our body, we could just go again off observation. Like, did people for thousands of years in the way that they were eating and they didn't struggle with all the health problems that we struggle with, did they eat sugar? And the answer to that would be yes, they did eat sugar. Do you know how they ate sugar?
How are you defining sugar, I guess?
Yeah, well, again, that's where we want to go, because people hear the word sugar, and again, see it as evil, see it as a devil, see it as something that should never go inside of our body. But vegetables, fruit, grains, tubers, even milk, dairy products, all those have forms of sugar in them. So yeah, people, when they ate those types of food, they were ingesting sugar, right? So we know that just based off of that, just observing history, that our bodies are able to handle sugar. They're able to process it and do something with it. We even talked about this a couple weeks ago with how sugar is a way that taking in sugar is a way our body can have energy, can turn into ATP and be able to function well. So our bodies actually even need sugar. Our bloodstreams, if we don't have a certain amount of sugar in our bloodstreams, we wouldn't survive. There's something called hypoglycemia. Basically, it's low blood sugar. That's very dangerous. They even know that our red blood cells, the only way they function is off of glucose, off a sugar molecule. So they can't use anything else to function. So we absolutely need sugar, but the problem is when we compare how those people, the ways that they would get sugar and the amount of sugar that they would get is a lot different than what we're doing now.
Yeah, sure.
So just to kind of hit on some statistics about that. If we kind of even forget about those type of people like thousands of years ago and just even go a couple hundred years ago, research says that in the late 1700s, the average intake of sugar per year was 4 pounds, the average person. In the 1800s, that went up to 18 pounds per year. So that's a pretty significant jump.
Super.
In the 1900s, it went up to 90 pounds per year. Now, what's your guess for what it is now?
Oh, gosh. So you went 4 to 18, so a little over 4 times, and then 18 to, what was the last one? 90. Basically, another 4. I don't want to say 4. Let's say times 2.
Yeah, that'd be about right. It's 200 pounds per year.
More than 2.
Of
Wow.
sugar that we ingest. So 50% of Americans take in over 50 teaspoons of sugar every single day. They know that for optimal health, that the average male, I think it is, can take in 9 teaspoons of sugar per day, and the average female should take in 6 teaspoons of sugar per day. And 50% of Americans take in 50 teaspoons of sugar per day.
So, explain to me that difference between men and women. Body mass?
Yeah, I think, well, just probably hormone function, just
Mm-hmm.
body's ability for muscles to kind of absorb up the sugar.
Yep.
So the bodies are going to use it. So that's actually a good point. So that's kind of how most people think about sugar, right? They just see it as its source of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take in sugar, our bodies can use it for energy. And if they don't, the only thing that's going to happen is it's just going to get stored. Maybe they don't even know it gets stored, but some people even know because they know it leads to things like becoming overweight. It gets stored in our body as fat, but that's all that's going to happen.
Do you know what 9 teaspoons is in grams?
I think it was like 22 grams, maybe.
Should compare 22 grams to
Maybe I have that.
certain foods.
No, I don't get it.
Alex also has about 20 tabs open on his computer at all times.
Actually, at all times, and like for multiple days in a row. It is 38 grams
Okay.
of 9 teaspoons, 25 grams for 6 teaspoons. So that's a ton.
Yeah.
So then, again, just common sense says people in the 1700s, things like heart disease, diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, even things like autoimmune disease, all the hormonal problems that we struggle with now, thyroid, adrenals, all this stuff. Like that stuff was extremely rare in the 1700s, and now it's epidemic.
Yeah.
Right. Chronic disease is epidemic. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all that stuff is on the rise. And that's really only been happening since the early 1900s when we went from, again, 18 pounds to 90 pounds. And now, obviously, as it gets worse, we are at 200 pounds of sugar. So, again, there's so much about nutrition that people get confused about. But if we could just keep it as simple as possible, like the problem, or I guess the biggest difference in how people used to eat when they were healthy and how we eat now and we're unhealthy is not because we eat too much meat, not because we eat too much gluten or dairy or all the other stuff, that's all the crazes that are out right now. It's because one of the biggest reasons is because we eat too much sugar.
Sure. Yep. So maybe this is where you're going, but what's actually the problem with sugar?
Well, there's many problems. It's extremely toxic in high amounts. But probably, I guess we'll just start with kind of some of the more basic stuff and then go to more serious stuff here.
Yeah.
We all know sugar rots our teeth, probably, right? Which is probably the main reason that people used to have their kids avoid sugar.
Yeah.
Or minimize it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because they cared about their kids' teeth, but because they cared about paying the dental bills, right?
Once again, former dental student over here.
That's right. But one of the primary things that sugar does is creates inflammation. So inflammation, when you talk to really people that study health and all the chronic diseases, inflammation plays a part in every single chronic disease that's out there. But you think something like arthritis, which is just inflammation of your joints. So that can cause obviously severe pain. It can be debilitating, cause people to have to retire early, things like that. Sugars causes inflammation, which if that gets into your joints, it can lead to things like arthritis.
Mm.
If inflammation happens in your sinuses, that causes sinusitis, which leads to sinus infections, can maybe develop sinus polyps, which are abnormal cells, can turn into cancer cells. causes sinus headaches, all this miserable stuff that people deal with there.
Yeah.
If your gut gets inflamed, that's can lead to things like what's called leaky gut, which then leads to autoimmune problems like Crohn's disease, MS, type 1 diabetes, all those different things.
Yep.
Inflammation of your brain. That's can cause something simple as migraine headaches, but it can also lead to things like neurological problems that are on the autism spectrum. Of course, it can lead to things like dementia, Alzheimer's, and then even death. Obviously, if your brain inflames too much, you can obviously die. So inflammation is just huge, right? Heart disease. So heart disease is a huge inflammatory problem. So one of the best tests, everybody gets their cholesterol test or blood pressure test. One of the best tests to figure out if you are on your way to heart disease is an inflammatory marker called CRP or homocysteine. So if you have those levels are high, we know that there's somewhere inflammation in your body. And if you have other symptoms of heart disease, then we know that's probably the primary problem. It's just inflammation that's happening. So your arteries basically inflaming, closing down, causing high blood pressure, causing potential heart attacks. So inflammation is deadly, and it happens again when we have an overabundance of sugar. Next thing is shuts down your immune system. So I can't remember if I've talked about this in a previous episode, but I know I did a blog post on it.
Yeah.
But it decreases what's called the phagocytic index. What that means is basically the number of bacteria, bad bacteria, or any sort of other microbe that gets inside your body, the number that each white blood cell can kill. So of course you want your white blood cells going after these bacteria, killing them before they were to cause negative effects to your body. So they found that when we ingest too much sugar, and I don't have the exact number, but it is in that teaspoon area.
Yep.
Shuts your phagocytic index down by anywhere from 75 to sometimes 90%.
Holy cow.
So what that means, basically, if you have 100 bacteria somewhere in your body that is going to cause negative effects, your white blood cells normally would go and kill all 100 of those, keep you healthy. But in the presence of sugar, it might only kill 10 of those things. And then bacteria is able to survive and just continue to go and cause a bunch of problems.
Yeah.
So if you want to avoid colds, symptoms, flu symptoms, even allergy type symptoms, all that is sugar plays a huge role.
Okay, I've got a very, very practical question. So say somebody is experiencing flu symptoms and they understand that sugar is taxing to their immune system. They understand sugar is prohibiting them from getting better, working against them, fighting off that flu. But they also know that, like, when you have the flu, it's hard to eat. And one of the easiest things to digest is simple carbohydrates. So what's like the super practical, like, I guess, what should people eat when they do have the flu?
Yeah. Well, I think we can learn from...
And sorry, I guess I didn't really say it. So fat, on the other hand, is it's much like harder. It is, longer burning, like we've been talking about the past couple of weeks. Doesn't digest as quickly.
So you're saying it'd be more difficult for people to actually eat fat when their bodies don't feel like they can eat anything?
Right, that's my question. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I think we can learn from man's best friend, dogs.
Okay.
When dogs are sick, do you know what they do?
I had a dog for about a year of my life, and that's about it. So I don't know.
Well, when dogs or any other animal sick, it doesn't eat at all.
Okay.
They just drink water to stay hydrated. But they don't eat just because, again, intuitively innately they know that if they eat something, that takes energy to break down, to digest, to get things out of it, to get rid of things that it doesn't need in your body. And when you do that, you're pulling that energy that your immune system potentially would need to fight off whatever's going on.
Sure.
to then now not digest food. So probably the biggest or the best recommendation there would be you don't necessarily have to eat when you're feeling like that.
I think that's probably counterintuitive to what a lot of people think. They think, okay, as soon as I can, I need to get more fuel into my body.
Yeah.
So,
and again, if even if that was the case and it took energy so that you could digest food, but it didn't have this other effect of, especially if you're eating sugar, impact on the immune system, then it might be fine. But when you combine those two things, how it's just taking energy away from your immune system working, and then now you're putting something in your body like a sugar that's going to shut your immune system down even more, then yeah, it's absolutely crazy to eat something that's like a sugar when you're fighting a cold or a flu.
Like a certain beverage marketed towards children with sugar and colors and that kind of thing, that's probably a bad choice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, if you're wanting kind of an alternative to that, coconut water is a super good alternative to that. So it is hydrating, but also has the right balance of electrolytes that you would need to, because obviously hydration is more than just water. You know, you need minerals and stuff in there, what they call electrolytes. So coconut water's what I would do. Does that answer your practical question?
I think so. I think that's good.
Okay. Next thing, sugar leads to addiction, which many people have a problem with. And it doesn't just lead to sugar addiction. It gets your body trained to what they studied is sugar. When you introduce sugary things into children at an early age, it kind of sets them up for, I guess, needing something like that to kind of give them pleasure over time. So it can be kind of like a gateway, like they think of marijuana as a gateway drug to other worse illegal drugs. They're finding that sugar potentially could be the same thing. But they've also found that it's even more addicting than things like cocaine or heroin, which is super addicting for people. Now, it's not going to have, obviously, the severe or immediate toxic effects that those drugs would have, but it potentially could be even worse long term because you don't know what it's doing to your body long term, and it's just causing problems. Where obviously if you're addicted to a illegal drug, that's going to cause you problems right away, and you would need to make a change.
And behaviorally, it's one of the most readily available substances, period. Yeah.
Absolutely. And heroin dealers, cocaine dealers can't legally market to people, right? But sugar dealers market to us in multiple ways. So what it does is so opiates, of course you could take opiates. There's drugs that take care of people's pain. Basically what it does is takes your body, it's supposed to take your body naturally from when we're feeling really down, depressed about something. It's supposed to take us into kind of normalize our emotions and how we're feeling. Well, sugar actually produces these endogenous, so that just means your body inside is making them, as opposed to taking something outside the body. It makes these opiates, which are these chemicals that our bodies produce in response to taking us from a place of feeling bad to feeling good. Well, the sugar gives us a high, like a drug would. So without even feeling bad, when we're eating sugar, it kind of then now takes us even higher. So the problem with that is our bodies enjoy that pleasure, and what do you think it does? It wants more of it.
Oh, absolutely,
right? So now we're always looking for kind of these short-term highs, and we know we can get that from sugar, so that's what our bodies get addicted to. But then the problem is, there's already problems with that, but a bigger problem is the more you eat, the more desensitized you get to it. So if I'm addicted to sugar and I'm eating a certain amount of sugar every day, eventually, in order for me to get that high, I will now need to ingest more sugar over time to get the same type of high.
Yeah.
Which, again, leads to all kind of problems. So leads to inflammation, leads to addiction, shuts down our immune systems. Next thing is a big deal, and many people don't know this because when I say this word, everybody has a misunderstanding of what it actually is and how we should get better from it. But sugar feeds cancer cells. So cancer's probably the scariest thing that there is. I think when everybody hears cancer, everybody immediately thinks death.
Yeah.
Unless they could be saved again by some sort of treatment. But there's actually a ton of stuff that we can do nutritionally to, I guess, make our bodies strong enough to be able to fight off cancer and minimize the effects of cancer cells.
Yeah.
So cancer cells are what's called an obligate glucose metabolizer. What that means is obligated to use sugar for energy. So where our cells can use multiple things for energy, cancer cells have kind of changed how they metabolize substances for energy, and it can only use sugar for that energy. So all of our cells have these receptor sites on them, so they're bringing in oxygen they can use for energy. They're bringing in, of course, sugar to use for energy. But what cancer cells do is they go from, I don't know, I think it's like 3 or 4 receptor sites to like 2 or 3 times that many receptor sites for sugar, because they know that's the only way that they can actually survive. So they put off all these more receptor sites, so then now if sugar comes anywhere close to them, they can absorb it, and that's how they continue to survive. So, of course, if we are eating sugar, then we're feeding those cancer cells, we're allowing them to thrive. But what do you think happens if we stop eating sugar?
They don't survive.
They don't survive. Why? Because they can't survive. Because the only way they can survive, the only way they can continue to produce energy and function is if they have sugar.
Yeah.
So eliminating as much sugar as we possibly can is a huge thing at fighting, of course, probably the most dread disease that there actually is. But probably the most devastating thing that sugar does to our bodies, and this is kind of what you were asking about, is why sugar actually has these negative effects on our body, is it negatively affects the hormone function in our body. And probably the biggest one that it affects is insulin. So we talked about insulin, I believe, in episode 9. So just the last one that was actually taped, episode 9. And we said that one of the benefits of fasting was decreasing your insulin levels.
Yeah.
And the reason that that's important is because if you have high insulin levels all the time, you can become insulin resistant. So sugar is why your insulin levels would be high all the time if you're eating sugar all the time. And then that makes your cells insulin resistant. So what does that mean? When we put sugar in our body, it eventually gets to our bloodstream, right? So if we have too much sugar in our bloodstream, that would be super toxic for us and we would die. So our bodies produce this hormone insulin, goes inside of our blood, takes that sugar molecule, and then wants to go and put it inside cells so that it could use it for energy. If you are insulin sensitive, meaning that your cells are welcoming those sugar molecules and they're okay with insulin bringing them in, you're going to be fine. You're going to be healthy, and your hormones are going to function the way they're supposed to, and they're not going to create inflammation. But if you're eating too much sugar, then the more sugar you eat, of course, the more insulin you're going to have to produce. And then now there's all this insulin trying to get this sugar inside of cells, but eventually cells are like, I can't take in any more sugar.
Yeah.
And again, those receptor sites that we talked about, they get used up. And now even if insulin wanted to put the sugar inside the cell, there's nowhere it could actually fit because the receptor sites are gone. So if it can't go inside the cell, it stays in the bloodstream. And then that's when, obviously, blood sugar goes high, which leads to type 2 diabetes, diabetic, all the problems that come with diabetics, like, losing eyesight, or having neuropathy pain, which eventually could lead to losing limbs.
Yeah.
All of those different things can actually happen. Insulin resistant is also, they know that can lead to cancer just because of causing the inflammation.
Sure.
They know that it can lead to heart disease by causing inflammation in your arteries and destroying what they call endothelial cells, which is just the cells that line your arteries. But Alzheimer's disease, they're starting to think that it's just the 3rd type of diabetes.
Interesting.
So what happens in it is just like the insulin resistance leads to your cells losing the receptors so that it can't take in the glucose. Same thing potentially happens in your brain. So
your lady's listening live and calling back right now to yell at you.
so all the problems that lead to dementia, Alzheimer's, cognitive decline, memory loss, all those problems could potentially just be due to insulin resistance.
Yeah.
So the biggest way to fight insulin resistance, which would mean the biggest way to fight cancer, the biggest way to fight Alzheimer's, the biggest way to fight heart disease, the biggest way to fight the leaky gut stuff that leads to autoimmune diseases, is decreasing your inflammation by decreasing insulin resistance, by decreasing the amount of sugar that you're actually putting in your body.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
Makes a lot of sense to you. So that's sugar. And I think we probably could say more about that.
Yeah, well, so here's something that I think is worth wrestling with. Sugar cane is a natural product of the earth. How can you say that something that God placed here in the ground is no good for us?
Yeah. Well, again, like we started at the beginning, we need sugar in certain amounts. And, obviously the way that God created food is he put these sugar molecules inside of other foods, right? So it's in fruit, it's in vegetables, it's in sugar cane. The problem is when we get involved.
Sure.
And we start to change the structure, we start to process it, we start to chemicalize it.
Yeah.
We start to develop different forms, like taking a corn kernel and processing it enough to where it becomes high fructose corn syrup. All of these things are just the processing of it now makes it something that, number one, our body's not used to recognizing it in that form.
Such a concentrated, not natural form. Like that's,
right.
I think that's the easiest way to put it.
Right. But then also, it's just that makes it so much easier to put so much more of it inside of our body.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like there's no way we could eat enough vegetables or fruits to get the amount of sugar that we get when we drink a soda.
Yeah.
So now our body's in high concentrations of sugar. Our bodies just are trying to survive, trying to adapt to it, but it just can't. And that's what leads to all those problems that come with
Yeah,
sugar.
and I think I've said this before, but like one thing that I kind of came to on my own is realizing that eating real food, it's like I don't know that you can like get to a point of obesity eating real food. Like you're saying, I think it would probably be near impossible to get to certain levels of obesity without these extremely concentrated forms of sugar.
Right. Absolutely. And even things that probably the biggest thing that sugar is in is beverages.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's whether it's a
So
soda, whether it's a tea, or
when it's liquid, you can
fruit juice,
put it back.
You just continue to drink more and more of it,
Mm-hmm.
and not only is your body not used to that in high amounts, but it's also not used to it without the fiber and without the other vitamins and minerals that are in it.
Yeah.
And then just the absorption rate increases. So your body is used to taking things in. If it's not water, it's just water with very something else that's not in high amounts. If it's a food, you're meant to chew it. You're meant to get into your stomach, and the acid's supposed to break it down. And there's just this kind of slow process of getting through your body, so your body can say, okay, what about this is good? I can take from it, and what about this is bad that I could just eliminate? When you're drinking something, that just kind of goes right through. The body doesn't really know what to do with it.
Sure. So that's clear with soda. What about something like a fruit juice?
It's really no different. Fruit juice is not going to have I guess some of them do have colorings and stuff in it, but it's not going to have like the caramel coloring like a soda would. It's not. Some of the carbonation stuff in sodas can be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to have the preservatives and stuff that are in a soda. So there's lots of other things that make soda worse. And they say, well, it's just a natural form of sugar in the juice. But again, you've taken it away from really the way that it was created to be put in your body.
Yeah.
So if you're doing that in small amounts, probably not going to be a problem. But if you're doing it thinking it's a health food, so you're making it a high,
Sure.
making that a staple in your diet, then it's going to cause problems. And again, we've talked about this before. Now it's even become like actual fruit. Just that even though it has all the fiber and has all the vitamins and minerals in it, because of its sugar content, just because we're so unhealthy, now even something
Even
like that can
load
cause
yeah.
negative effects on our body. So then, now we have to adapt again. We have to learn, okay, this is something that potentially could cause me a problem.
Man, yeah. So yeah, even a good thing. I mean, yeah, there's a picture of some blueberries right over there. Like a good thing like that, because of the way that we've taken over other things, has become now something that we can't even enjoy. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, because those blueberries over there used to be like our whiteys.
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know. They used to eat them in small amounts when they would have them. They would super enjoy it. It would be something potentially they'd have during a celebration. But now it's, again, become a health food. And
Okay, I got one more sugar question.
okay.
How about your little drink over there?
Yeah.
So, I think anybody who's played around with kombucha, and maybe you've turned over and read the label and been like, oh, there's sugar in this. Like, this isn't good for me. And especially if you have made it yourself and you've actually poured the sugar into it. Why is that something you're choosing to drink?
Well, when you get to the point where you're drinking it, the hope would be that that sugar's all been eaten up by the bacteria that also is involved in making kombucha. So now, I guess the amount of sugar has been decreased. So it's not like we're drinking the amount of the sugar that you put in the actual tea before it was fermented. But then also it creates these kind of microbes that are super good for your body. So kind of you take something that was super negative potentially for your body and decrease the amount of it, but then also it, I guess, strengthens these microbes that are very good for your body. So yeah, there's a couple different benefits there of drinking something like that.
Yeah. So if you're unfamiliar, kombucha is a fermented tea. Basically, tea, this culture of bacteria and yeast and sugar. And that's kind of the combo that produces this. Alex has got some berries in there.
Those are cherries.
Oh, cherries. Cherry's not considered a berry.
I don't think so.
I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if it matters.
Yeah, we're trying some flavors. We typically just have the
Plain. Yeah.
Fermented tea, but for the kids mainly, get some flavor in there.
Get some on it. I don't think we're. Yeah, this is definitely plenty for one episode. I don't think we're going to get to that vegetable oil. Wow,
Nope.
I didn't really believe you at first, but we definitely did it. Anything else on sugar, I guess?
Well, I guess just kind of some practical stuff. So we know now that you maybe have already knew that sugar was bad, but we just didn't know the depth of the problems that it could cause, and really how powerful it can be for your body and for your health if you stopped or if you minimize it. But the best way to minimize, even if we just forgot about what we were just saying about sugar or about fruit, right? We continue to eat fruit, or even if we continue to drink some sort of a fruit juice, if we just for sure stopped drinking the soda, and then we looked at packages that we're buying, bread that we're buying, whatever else, processed type food, again, bag, box, all the stuff that we buy that's in the middle of the grocery store. We just turned it around and looked at, is there not just how much sugar's in it, but like all the different types of sugar. Then it would actually be pretty easy to avoid sugar, to minimize it as much as possible. So getting really good at reading food labels is something practical.
So I know I kind of ragged on acute diets a little bit earlier, but so something like the Whole30, almost everybody I know who has kind of tried that, cold turkey after, eating however they want, that's kind of their first glimpse into, oh, I'm going to try to, eat healthy for these 30 days or whatever. One of the things that I hear all the time is, so besides just eating the whole foods, there's a big push on no sugar and even like no like any type of sweetener. So even some of the sweeteners like a raw honey or a stevia leaf, like even that, avoiding that. One of the biggest things that people say is all these things that I wouldn't even have expected to be finding sugar in. Like I can't buy that. I can't eat that because I've found it in all these places I didn't expect to see it.
Yeah.
So
Yep. I've even seen it in table salt.
really,
I mean, not that you should be having table salt, but they have it should be just salt.
Yeah.
And they have sugar in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, salad dressing, ketchup,
yeah.
bread. The second ingredient typically in bread is high fructose corn syrup.
Mm-hmm.
It's enriched wheat flour or just wheat flour. Even if it's whole wheat flour, then the next thing is high fructose corn syrup. So baby formula.
Yeah.
High in sugar.
Man.
So.
And it's like, for most of that stuff, it gets added for flavor. It's added for the experience of eating it and enjoying it and that kind of stuff. But like a baby, like they don't know any better.
Right.
you
right.
know?
There's a spot in here in this book where she talks about what pediatricians recommend for babies who need more nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And they recommend Pediasure. You ever heard of that?
Heard of Pediasure?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of made a slight reference to it earlier.
Well, that was Pedialyte.
Oh, Pedialyte, sorry, yeah. Oh, so Pediasure is the like
baby version of Ensure.
Sure.
Probably.
Okay.
I'm not gonna find it, but basically it's like has I think 10 times as much sugar as like breast milk.
Yeah.
What ordinary regular milk would have. So that's what the kind of recommendation is for babies if they can't get enough nutrition from mom, to just go ahead and take in Pediasure that has 10 times as much sugar. So we'll just go ahead and start off all these, insulin resistance and shutting down your immune system and gut issues, and brain issues all at the beginning.
Yeah. Jeepers.
Crazy. Yeah, and to just speak to the cancer thing again, so obligate glucose metabolizer. Only way it can survive is if it continues to take in sugar. And I've had plenty of patients that have dealing with cancer, and one of the things that happens with cancer is they start to lose weight. So just to kind of give them calories, and like you were referencing, it's hard to break down food potentially when you're in a sick state. So something easy to ingest would be something like an Ensure, which is pretty much pouring gasoline on the fire there.
Right.
So.
I've heard, maybe you can validate this, I've heard that, so if an alternative to breast milk is necessary, I've heard that goat's milk is actually the closest thing to human breast milk.
Yeah. Yep. So, here it is. First ingredient is water in Ensure. The second ingredient is sugar, accounting for 108 grams per liter.
Okay, so I mean that's a liter is a ton, but
whole milk by comparison is 8 grams of sugar per liter.
So that
over 10 times.
That's actually a good reference to make, because you said earlier that dairy, things like milk and even all these other things, they have a natural sugar content in them, but that's astronomically different.
Yeah, like you said, it's over 10 times. What did you ask me?
The goat's milk thing.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Well, if somebody can't, for whatever reason, nurse their baby, which I would try really, really hard, multiple times if that's not happening in the beginning. But of course, there's human breast milk donors.
That
you can do. But yeah, goat's milk can also be helpful. There still might need to be some things added to that. DrAxe.com that we referenced in one of our earlier episodes, he has a alternative baby formula on there. I think Mercola might have one too. Sally Fallon in Nourishing Traditions also has a baby formula alternative as opposed to just, going to the sugar-filled formulas that are on the commercial stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Well, if you don't have any more thoughts, we've got like 50 seconds here before the camera's going to time out. So
50 seconds.
45.
Oh. Yeah, so again, I would just we're not telling you to completely avoid it. I think that's impossible. But just be smart with it, Use it for times where you are celebrating, where you can enjoy it with yourself or with your family. But you have to, I guess, prepare yourself for that. Minimize it as much as possible before you get to those times, if you want to avoid all the different things that we talked about.
Sure. Cool. Vegetable oils at a future date. Thanks for listening.
I will tell you, it might be worse than sugar. Ooh, there you go.
Teaser.